Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Derek and Craig. Kind of get started a little bit quick this morning. I actually got an email from a gentleman. I'm not sure if he's here in the states. I think he is, but it doesn't really matter anywhere around the world, really. He had some questions about as far as comparing a couple detectors, not only for himself but for his kids and stuff like that. And he had some basic questions about it. Craig and I sometimes get into a little too much depth on, pun on words, Craig, a little too much in depth on some of the performance items and stuff on these detectors and what they can do. And for a new person in the hobby, it can be confusing. And we use a lot of shop talk about these detectors, what they can do, recovery delay, all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, we have a lot of listeners that are experienced hunters that they have so many different kinds of metal detectors that we kind of compare the detectors between them, to see which one's doing the best thing, which one runs different frequencies, and recovery delays and all that stuff. As to see which one is the best one, or which one's working the best right now in a certain area. But a man's name's Nathan, and he has a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and he has a White's, I think it was a White's Classic, Craig, Classic 2. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit older White's machine. I think it's either 6 or 7 kilohertz machine, which I didn't realize. I didn't know they made a 6 kilohertz White's machine. But a lot of these things, lower kilohertz usually means it picks up higher conductors, or it used to mean that. And then the lower conductors, like gold, usually had the number would be higher. It just enables the machine back then to hit certain kinds of targets better. And every detector will find you something. It's just pretty much how they do it. And you can have some that are very good at one thing and not so good at others, like pinpointing or getting depth or whatever. And then another machine will do that better, but not have a very good VDI system on them, the little numbers that come up on the screen. But he was asking about he was thinking about getting an AT Pro 2, I think it was, or a Gold, I believe it was, anyways, for his kids. But he was wanting something that he didn't have to supervise them so much with. I mean, we're talking 9 and 11 years. And a lot of those are, kids are pretty smart, anyways, when it comes to electronics. But the points, I guess, that make sense to at least me, and I think it does Craig also. Number one is weight. Okay, I've had an AT Pro. They're good machines, and they're wide sellers. I mean, a lot of guys have them on here. The one thing that I know for sure on an AT Pro compared to a Simplex is the coil side weight. And what I mean by that is where you grab a machine or hold a machine in your hand, the weight distribution on the machine. Now, with the AT Pro, with the stock coil, it is coil side heavy. So that wears on your wrist, and as a 9 or 11-year-old, of course, they're still growing and everything, and they may not be able to. They will be able to, because they'll make sure that they use the metal detector. But I mean, it's putting a lot of stress on their arm and to the coil side, and I've seen some kids will actually grab the metal detecting shaft with two hands, one with the handle and one with the other, so they can swing it right, and that's really affecting their ease of use or being comfortable with the machine. And the AT Pro only weighs, I think, 3.5 pounds. The Simplex is almost 3 pounds, but it is very ergonomic, or very balanced as far as coil side weight and everything else. It's also pretty adjustable, and I just can't remember off the top of my head, Craig, whether you can adjust the arm cuff on an AT Pro. I just can't remember, to be honest with you. I don't think you can. I think it's pretty much set up. Now, both machines, the Simplex Plus and the AT Pro, are both waterproof machines. They both have, I think you can get wireless headphones, I think, with the AT Pro with a connector, I believe.
Yeah, Z-Link.
Yeah, Z-Link, yeah. They're both pretty good IDing targets. Now, what I found, the simplex, well, I'm just going to say it the way it is, and you've seen it in my videos. You can literally take a simplex, just push the on button, and they can go metal detecting. I did it several times out at the new site I have. I didn't have any real problem. The VDI numbers, I talk a lot about those, the way they jump around and stuff, but the sound on the simplex, it seems to be a lot. There's a lot of information in the tones of that machine that I think most anybody with a little bit of practice or a little bit of use can kind of get used to at least to the point where they say, okay, wait a minute, there is something there. It's given them enough information to say, I need to dig that. Where with the AT Pro, and I think I did some comparisons with the F75, the AT Pro and stuff, and the AT Pro did well against the F75. But we're also talking price point, Craig. You can't beat for 200. And I think right now, if you guys go to SeriousDetecting.com, Evan up there has them in stock, $254 for a Simplex Plus. And I think that's the average price what they're running across the board as far as just without the headphones. Now, if you get them with the wireless headphones, which would probably be nice for the younger guys or gals, also it's $339. And compared to an AT Pro that's in what they're running about 500, Craig, or a little bit more, brand new.
Well, the Max is a little bit more. Mm-hmm. They got the AT Max, which is AT Pro, basically boosted up with the sensitivity and everything.
But helping them, price point wise, I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, you're obviously, you have kids, you're probably, younger family or whatever, and it's, you got to worry about the price too, for what you're getting for your money. I personally would say get them a Simplex only because it's lighter. It doesn't cost as much,
the functionality on it is better too. You got different modes you can go into, the field and the park and stuff, and
right.
I guess
the beach,
and it just seems to be very user friendly. It
was designed for young people or for new people.
It's got incredible technology for the price. I mean, you look at that machine. It's a $600 machine. It looks like, to me.
And he's also wanting to use it himself, Craig, because they use his metal detector.
Yeah.
And they go out there. But he doesn't want to sit there. Let them have an adventure. You know what I mean? They can pretty much figure out. Once you get them started with it, turn it on and let them start metal detecting, they can go and have an adventure, without mom and dad being over their shoulder telling them what to do, and let them learn it. And that's pretty much what he was saying. He didn't want to have to supervise them all the time. If they want to go out in the backyard with it, he didn't have to worry about them having 1,000,001 questions, because really, even the sensitivity is pretty much set on presets when you first turn the machine on. They can learn. There's not very many adjustments they can make other than sensitivity, ground balance, iron, volume, just a very basic gamut of adjustments that they don't even really need to even think about messing with off the bat. They can just go out there and dig treasure. That's, when I was that age, that's what I'd want to do. Just dig up good stuff. I don't care. They're happy with finding anything, really. It doesn't matter. It's all treasure beneath, below their feet. But from that standpoint, I would say I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I like it better than I liked my AT Pro. Now, I did with the AT Pro have a tornado coil. There is aftermarket coils for the AT Pro, but we're also talking that when you start using those coils, they do get deeper. The VDI numbers don't lock on. You're going more by sound. That's what I found with it. Not that it's a bad machine, and we don't beat up machines here at all. It's just it's simple. The Simplex is simple, And I think you made a joke, Craig. Didn't you say the next one's going to be what? You said the last show.
Well, they'll come out with a top of the line machine. They'll call it the Complex.
The Complex, yeah. I thought that was hilarious because it does make sense. With some of these machines, you can get into so many adjustments and everything, and it's great for those of us that are really into the hobby, that really want to get max performance out of a machine, to have those adjustments. But as a new person in the hobby or somebody with less experience, I mean, sometimes you don't want that. You just want to go out there and dig stuff. And this is one of the a lot of them, turn on and go, like the Equinox. You can turn on and go, I believe. Also, they talk about that with the Simflex. It was just, I don't know. I didn't have any problems at all when I started. I didn't ground balance it. I just simply turned the machine on, put it in the mode that I wanted, which is as simple as hitting the settings button or the button up on top, and go over the manual with them. It's so important, and I hate reading manuals as much as the next guy does. But the manual is well written. It was in common English or whatever. It wasn't this proper English thing, so it's very easy to understand. But you get little tidbits of information in that manual that you maybe not even thought about. I mean, the one that stands out in my mind was when they were talking about iron volume, how you could turn down the sound of actual iron, but all the non-ferrous items like the copper and the brass, gold, silver, they're all still at the standard volume level. This enables you to hear them a little bit better, and it gives you a little bit more depth, and is what they said in the manual. That little tidbit of information, well, it's worked for me. I'm definitely digging deeper items.
Well, you're using less discrimination, and usually, that gives you, advantage in depth.
Right.
I remember, we used to, try to hunt trashy areas by, turning the disc up, to like maybe 7 or 8,
Yeah.
And it would really erode your depth on your machines back, in the early days,
right.
30 some years ago. But
and I'm using the machine as a relic hunting machine too. I'm not, we're not in a park or whatever. In a park situation, and you mentioned house site, you like a regular somebody's house, and the one thing I found is if you're in the park mode, is essentially coin and jewelry mode or whatever, it's a lot more selective. You don't get as great of depth, but when you're talking, a 9-year-old kid, you don't want them digging to China. You don't want the detector to pick up extremely deep items anyways. I mean, because it's somebody's yard, and you have to show them exactly how to cut a plug, how to, keep it neat and clean, because you want to teach them the right etiquette, about the hobby. It's kind of common sense, how to leave a site cleaner than what you found it. Don't leave dig holes open. This kind of, it's going to give them a range of, like, I think a dime-sized target is no problem for this machine up until 7 inches, probably deeper than that, but I mean, for a lock-on VDI number that you can kind of teach them to go by, also, the sound and the VDI number if it's locked on, to 5-6 inches, and that's where you find most of your coins at a house site, like, somebody's house or you're digging in. But, teach them everything, and let them, keep, I guess, giving them the opportunity to have an adventure by themselves without mom and dad around or whatever. You're watching over them, obviously, but it just gives them a way to do that and not get confused and not get aggravated with a bunch of settings and a bunch of stuff that they really don't care about. They want to find treasure, and they want a machine that dad uses or mom uses because it makes them, they're like big people.
Well,
they're like adults.
Yeah, they don't want some kid's machine, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I taught tennis, and kids would go, this little tiny racket, makes me look like a little kid, and
there's little pink flowers on it, little cars, and yeah, it's just
kids can know when stuff is junk,
right?
They're not stupid, and they're watching TV, they see what everybody else is doing, and the parent tries to pawn some piece of junk on them.
I like this. My arm hasn't bothered me at all using. I've swung this thing for 6 to 7 hours straight, and I've never even blinked about, oh my God, my arm is starting to really hurt. And I haven't had to take any ibuprofen at the end of the day because my arm hurt. Now my knees, my other arm digging all the time. Yeah, I mean, it bothers me. I'm hitting 50 here next year, and my body's just crumbling. Everything after 40 is all downhill. So my dad used to tell me, but it's just easy to maneuver the machine. You can adjust, and I believe on the on a Simplex, when it comes to you, you can actually. There's 3 screws in the top of the arm cuff, which is actually a very secured system for the arm cuff. You take those screws out, and then you can slide the arm cuff closer to the handle. I had to do this because when it comes to you, it actually has it's made for a man probably 6'2". I mean, the arm length part of it, Craig, I couldn't really get a firm, like a lock-in feeling on the handle of the thing with the arm cuff all the way back. So I took out the 3 screws, slid the thing where I wanted it, put 2 screws back in, and the third one I just put in the old hole that was at the end of the detector shaft so I can keep up with it. You know what I mean? So you don't lose it. But you can actually go one more forward, and that should be almost perfect. I mean, I would think for any kid, 9 to 13 years old, 14 years old, but they're used to using your machine already. So they're used to the arm cuff thing, and the arm cuff is flexible. It has a nice, strap on it, Velcro strap, but it fits my arm pretty good. I haven't had, I had even the Bliss tool, the arm cuff was made out of aluminum, and it would dig into the corners of it, and it doesn't really have pointed corners, but it's rounded. But sometimes that would get me in the forearm. I actually have marks on my arm from some detectors where it, just from repeated use almost bruises you. So you can adjust that. This thing will shrink right up, and it's sturdy. It doesn't have any wobble in it. That's one thing that a lot of detectors. It's just an engineering issue. A lot of them use round tubes for the detector shafts or square. You do have a wobble in a lot of them, which you can, fix. They make things so you can get rid of that wobble and stuff. With the Simplex, I haven't had that problem. I mean, I'm hitting this thing against, stubble and through high grass, and of course, I'm a big guy anyway. So when I'm digging a hole and I lose my balance a little bit, I've put pressure on that coil, which you shouldn't do. Use it as a crutch or whatever. But I've accidentally done it, and it's actually flexed a little bit, left and right, but up and down it doesn't flex at all. But the coil ears are built really good. So, I mean, as far as durability, it's really good. And so is the AT Pro. The AT Pro is actually very durable also. They're underwater machines. As long as they have the cap on the charger port on the Simplex, or, they have, hookups for headphones and everything on the AT Pro. As long as you have it capped off, you're good to go into the water. If it rains out and they're outside, you don't have to worry about the machine getting all wet and everything and frying the machine. It's waterproof. I've dropped the Simplex a couple times accidentally, or it's fallen over. It doesn't seem to affect it whatsoever. Not to saying you have to beat it on the ground, but I mean, under normal circumstances, it's not going to hurt it. Pretty well designed. But yeah, that's my spin on it. I'd say go ahead and get it. I mean, you can literally afford to buy 2 Simplexes for the cost of one AT Pro, if you're going strictly by financial points, price points. Like I said, AT Pro is a very popular machine. It does a lot. I've owned it. I think, Lloyd from Relics Radio has one. Mark Hoover has one. I mean, AT Pro is a popular machine, and it does find you stuff. Even, Nugget Noggin uses one. He's probably using something different now, but yeah.
He's using the Max.
AT Max, yeah.
Yeah. It's got tweaked up sensitivity over the AT Pro, but it's basically, looks the same.
And they're talking about smaller coils too, Greg. I just saw a mention of that, a smaller coil for the Simplex. So they will come out with this stuff. This machine has just really hit the U.S. market in the last couple months. And it's been hard to get. I mean, like I said, SiriusDetecting.com. I noticed it's in stock right now. It says it on the screen. And Evan's real good about that. I know that Calico got their order in.
They got them. They just got a whole bunch in. So
you're going to see.
You'll be able to get them fairly easily now for a while.
Right. It's right in time for Christmas too, and I know from personal experience, Evan's very good at Sirius Detecting about getting the the products out. He has a full crew. They have the stuff on site. It's not like it's a internet store where they have to order when you order. He keeps this stuff in stock, much like Helico does, and I'm sure there's a couple more. But keeping all this stuff in stock. They have shovels and fine bags and everything else. I think Nathan did say he has a pinpointer, a Garrett. I don't know if it's a Garrett Carrot or whatever. Hey, pinpointer is a pinpointer. If that's what you got, that's what you use. It's Garrett they put out a good pinpointer. It's that'll be fine for what you're using. I mean, a lot of my friends use pinpointers of all different kinds. Some are better, a little bit better than others, but they all do the job. Even ones you get from Craig, Harbor Freight. I mean, they're not the most durable ones in the world, but they'll work in a pinch. I mean, as long as you can get a dime at like 2 inches away from the probe end, you're just trying to locate an item in the pile of dirt. Craig and I both use a pulse induction pinpointer. They run about anywhere from probably $80 to $90, something like that, for the basic version.
Last one, I got two of them. One for Mike, and I got a backup for myself. I've actually had the Technics for 4 years and still running fine, but you know how it is. I figured I'd get a backup, and then Mikey didn't have one, so he said, order me one too. But they've gone up to about $89. I think they were like $80 before, but it's a very durable.
Yeah,
it's incredibly durable. The tip on the thing, it's a little plastic thing that fits over the end. I use that, a probe. I scrape the sides of the hole, and stuff with it. I mean, that thing it looks pristine. It doesn't even look like it's been used when you wash it off.
Yeah, you see mine in the video, Craig.
Any tears, nothing. Yeah. I mean, it looks, it's so durable. I've seen so many people, they lose the tips, they just, rub it off basically,
right?
And then they ended up putting like some kind of liquid plastic or something on the end, to keep.
I still have. I think mine came with 2 extra caps for the end of the pinpointer. I still haven't even used them. I still have the same original one on there from 2014 or 13, whenever I got mine. And you see it in the videos. I drop it, I kick it. The lanyard's still the original lanyard on it.
The whole thing is, the one thing you really need, I think, is a lanyard on your
yes
pinpointer. I've seen so many people, they'll go down and get the target
and forget it,
and they'll just leave they'll drop the pinpointer on the ground. They're looking at their target, and they fill the hole in, and they get up and they start walking, and all of a sudden, the next target, where's my pinpointer? There's nothing worse than having to backtrack 100 yards trying to find your pinpointer.
Hey, it's happened many times. It happens to a lot of experienced hunters. I had at the digging in Virginia. There was a guy who left his pinpointer by some hole, and then the shovel's the same way. The small shovels.
I saw a guy
looking all over the place.
We were at the Jackson hunt in 7-day Jackson camp a few years ago, and I noticed this guy was walking around, and looking on the ground. He didn't have a detector in his hand. So I said, "The heck's going on?" This guy said, "Oh man," he goes, "that guy just got his first pinpointer last week. He got a black, carrot. Well, it wasn't carrot, it's Garrett, but it was
right.
a black one."
Mm-hmm.
And he, dropped it in this one field, and he was 2 hours walking up and down that field, and all of a sudden we heard this yell, and he found it. But
well, they get expensive too. Some of these pinpointers, I'm like the Vibra Pro, I think they're over $200 or something like that. They sometimes try to give you, and I don't know if they still are, not these monstrosities of pinpointers. Some of these are really, I don't think they're doing it anymore, Craig, but you know what I'm talking about, that one that was about a foot long or whatever, and has a big square box on it and stuff. And I mean, you don't want to carry.
Well, a lot of those are for underwater.
Oh yeah, no, that I'm talking about the old square. It's actually a regular pinpointer. I think I can't remember if it was White's or whatever. They used to give this the probe itself was about a foot long, just a regular size probe, and then had the square box and a handle and a knob to turn it on.
Oh yeah.
Don't get that crap. You don't need that kind of. It's just to get you by. Go get a Garrett Carrot or a Mind Lab one or a Technics or what they call it, Quest Pro pointers. You can get X pointer. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to spend $1 billion on the thing. It's something that'll stick around and work. I haven't had any problems out of mine at all. White's has their brand also. They're all pretty good. As long as they can get you a dime, I would say 2 inches away from the end of the probe, and there's plenty of YouTube videos showing comparisons and stuff so you give you an idea of what brand you want to get and what it'll do. Now, I do there on occasion I would love to have had my old VLF pinpointer, but I use a pulse induction. But ultimately, you just want to know what's around, and with the X pointer from Quest, I think you can get a dime. It starts beeping at 4 inches away from the end of the probe. I think the Mind Lab one does too. It just and the beeping gets faster and faster as you get closer to the item that you're detecting down in the hole. I don't see a need to get any more power out of a pinpointer, because you don't want another metal detector. You simply want a probe to find whatever you've dug up or whatever might be in the sidewall, that kind of thing. So don't get hung up on depth on those. Just know that if you can get a dime at like 2 inches away, it's a pretty good pinpointer. Of course, pulse induction is going to be more sensitive, all the little nails and everything else. So, I guess that's where I'm at with it. I mean, if you get a Simplex, I mean, I don't sell them. I don't make any money from them. We have no affiliation whatsoever with any part of that. We just know how the machine works. If you want to get a better machine, like a more expensive. I mean, the next one you're going to have to go to is anywhere from $800 or $1,000 machine. I mean, if you want something better than what's already out, I mean, that'd be an Equinox or an Amphibio or something. Craig, I'm actually thinking about getting one of those Amphibios from Nokta, because it, I'm curious. It runs the same frequency as the Simplex. I mean, what settings are different? How can I? It's more of an advanced metal detector. Like we're used to using, like the CTX, like the Deus, like the whatever. It gives you a little bit more adjustment. I was actually thinking about getting one of those just to try it out, to see what it does, because I'm pretty impressed with the Simplex right now. I mean, it's held my interest for over a month now, and I'm still wanting to go out there with it and different spots. I'm going to try it in a park situation this week sometimes. Forgive me on that, Craig. I was going to do that today, and I'm so beat from this weekend. We had the big Wreaths Across America celebration, and stuff at our VFW post, and I was there all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and I still got to go back there today to get ready for a big Christmas parties and all that stuff. So I'm pretty well shot as far as my knees go. Try to walk around all day in metal detect. I'd love to do it, but yeah, I'm probably not going to get out until Wednesday. It looks like to get out there and do some detecting with it. But I'm going to take it to a park situation and use it there. I don't foresee any kind of problems. I mean, I think it's going to do just fine. If I'm digging stuff at 2 and 3 scoops down in the ground in field node, running in park, you probably get 2 scoops down, if that. I think I'm going to be pretty impressed with it. I want to see how it locks on to coins, and of course I'm going to dig some aluminum. I know it. You're not going to get away from can slaw, guys. It's just if you're new to the hobby, the aluminum is a pain in the butt. We all hate it. Like aluminum cans, they just bang through there, and there's a lot of tips and tricks on how to tell if you're dealing with that. Like an item that's really banging really loud, but you can lift the coil off the ground a foot and you're still getting it. More than likely, it's going to be either sitting on top of the ground just about, or it's a beer can. And on the same aspect, you want to get it out of the way because there might be another good target underneath it. but you're not going to get away from digging that kind of stuff with any metal detector. Is going to sound off. You may get used to it to the point where you can tell what it is, but we all know that if you have multiple items in a hole, you don't get a solid VDI number. A lot of times it jumps. So, going by a jumpy VDI, not digging it because of that, you're probably walking on a lot of good targets too. So, I guess that's all I can go into that with that. I'm going to email Nathan back today sometime. I did tell him that I got that email this morning when I first woke up, and I'm like, oh gosh, I have to think yet and have my coffee before I start doing that. But I think it'd be a great gift. I think your kids will love it. I wish I had had a metal detector at that age. Greg, I've talked about that a lot. I've always wanted to get one, and my dad and I built one back in the Popular Mechanics magazine where they had to build a metal detector. This was back in the showing my age. I think it was in 4th grade or something like that. And we went through and took a set of stereo headphones and took the board out and resoldered. Well, he did most of this because I was just a kid, but he took the time to resolder lines in and everything else. And I think the shaft was made out of PVC pipe, and a piece of plywood was the coil with a wire wrap around, on top of the piece of plywood, and then you connected the PVC pipe, to the round piece of plywood, for the coil. And we got it all. We thought we had it all together, and we don't know what happened, and we couldn't get the thing to work. And about a year later, my dad just said, "Okay, we're just going to take this thing apart." It'd been sitting in the garage, and it turns out the coax cable we were using as a coil cable somehow split inside the PVC pipe. I don't know whether it was just old and it cracked, but it broke the little copper wire inside of it. That's why it didn't work. But that's and we kind of gave up on metal detectors from then, because he said, well, God, I can't even get this thing to work, and I was just a kid. But yeah, 9, 10 years old, that's the perfect age to get kids involved in metal detecting. There's some out there that are even younger than that, and Craig, I think they do a good job. They have fun. We've watched a lot of them grow up in metal detecting anyway so far. Even Nugget Noggin, when I first started watching him, he was about 12, 13, 14 years old, Craig, when we first started watching him on YouTube, something like that.
Yeah,
I think he's in his 20s now, but like Maddie's only, I don't know how old Maddie is. He does his own little radio show and everything else. We met him up there at the CWPPO hunt, and then Josh Buckwalter's son Cody, he's younger, determined young man. I watched him at that one Ohio hunt. My mom and I went to, sitting by a hole with a metal detector and digging every signal, and he had this crater. It was like 3 foot wide, and I don't know. He's like a foot down and just went down there with a pinpointer, getting all these targets out, and just determined to find something. And it's a good hobby. It keeps them out of trouble. That seems to be the name of the game anymore, is keeping your kids, occupied with something, decent and good. So, at any rate, I guess, Craig kind of already went over 7:30 already. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take up so much time on that. I just realized what time it was. But go ahead and tell them about that. We'll just run a little late.
Yeah, I guess about 8 months ago, I was at Schaefer's, this barbecue place I go to eat, and the owner said, he showed me this local paper, and it had a bunch of relics on the front. And there's a guy, Jeff Taylor, that was hunting these cabin sites, and he said that Matt said he told him about me, and so he said, Jeff wants you to call him. So I called him up, and turns out he's been a relic hunter for 50 years, and he wanted help. And he said he had an he had a Garrett H250, and he had 5 or 6 cabin sites, and we found a lot of relics. We went out, 6 or 7 times, and we had like 2 drywall buckets full of relics and stuff, and they were poor cabins. but he showed me this slave cemetery, and I'd never seen a slave grave before. And they were like little pointed stones, and so this particular place, he'd done all this research, and there was 70 plus graves, and so yesterday I was sitting here thinking, and I thought, I ought to get a hold of Jeff, because I talked to him, recently, and about 10 seconds after I was thinking that, he called me on the phone. I was like, whoa. And he said, we're doing a slave dedication to the cemetery today, and we're going to have some people up here. And he said, I'd like, would you come? And I said, I'll be there. So he said, bring your metal detector, because they've been bulldozing nearby. So, but anyway, I went up there, and they found they've cleaned up the whole cemetery, and they put a fence all around it, and signs, and they actually got 3 black pastures that came up and 2 white ones, and they'd had problems because of the racial part of this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now, when the black pastors saw this place, they were in awe. They said, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable!" And so they did a dedication and sang some hymns and stuff, and it was pretty nice. There wasn't a lot of people there, but everybody that was there, they had a reporter, and they had some other people that were interested. But what it's done is caused a big buzz, and they're trying to make this into a heritage thing. They're going to bring archaeologists in and have them do some excavations and some work on it. They've already had them there to assess the place, but this has kind of brought the instead of being a controversy now, it's actually something positive.
Right.
That this is a lost piece of history that they were talking about how they brought the slaves from the plantation, and they brought them up on wagons with torches because they couldn't come during the day to do funerals because they were working. They only could come at night, and so there was a lot of information about it. And there was a community nearby called, after the Civil War, they basically were about maybe 2 miles from the plantation, maybe less.
Right.
And there was all these farmers on, hard scrabble farmers on all these little finger ridges around the area. So a lot of them started working for the farmers, and then they started making money, and they were actually, bought places, and there was several farmers that deeded their land to the slave that helped them. Well, they were free by then, but it was basically around 1870 this slave was actually, they started putting they put 4 white people into this cemetery. There's like 5. There's like one column, and then there's 3 other smaller white graves. There's a young boy about 18, and I think there's a child at 4 months, and then there's I think 2 women. But
that's kind of weird too, because usually, at least down here, we have old cemeteries and stuff, and slave cemeteries, and they're separate. They never, at least in this area, the ones I've seen now, I haven't seen every cemetery around, but the 2 that I'm talking about were totally, African American. Were buried in a totally different cemetery, right next to the white cemetery. It was really segregated, and it's a sad thing. It's a sad part of history, Craig. Really, obviously it's a hot topic sometimes, but it's this history. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, this thing has been discovered. It's been lost for a long time, and
that's a positive thing.
It was discovered because they started putting houses into this area and and excavating. And Jeff actually had his son had built a house on the probably about maybe a half a mile away, and when they bulldozed the property to put clear the land, there was just relics and glass and pottery all over the place, and that's how Jeff found out about the. And then he started thinking, and I told him, I said, probably camp. I mean, they would probably put a house on each, little house on each ridge, on each finger ridge that was, along the creek, and that's what turned out to be.
Yeah.
Just about every single ridge had a cabin site on them.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to start, doing some more detecting and stuff, and there's a lot more spots. I went and checked this one area that they bulldozed, and that was nearby, and we thought that it would have been a good place for the Union Army to kind of look down, or we thought there were some hut sites in that area, but they kind of scraped it to the point. It was almost like I dug a couple things out of the clay, but there wasn't any. I don't think there was any Civil War activity there, or it could have been hunted before. But along that road, the Union Army had retreated from oil, and the Confederates had harassed them all the way down to Middletown. So there's fighting all along there.
Yeah,
so awesome, a lot of awesome history along there. It's a beautiful road. It's this winding road that goes for probably about 9 miles. And, there's like farmhouses and old mansions all along this whole road. It's just you drive down there and you look it around. You go, I'd like to hunt that, and then you see the next house. I'd like to hunt that too.
Right, no doubt. Yeah, well, they get into a lot of this, this history thing, what's happened in the past, and the best way I think to look at it is that, we're living in this day and age where this is politically incorrect and that's politically, but back then that's the way things were. I mean, not that it was good or bad. It was just that's the way it was. That's the way you lived. That's what you had to do. I mean, you had to survive. You had things were not always peaches and cream. Just like they're not nowadays. I mean, we got enough stuff, but don't make it a racial kind of thing or a hatred kind of thing. It's people saving history and finding where our roots are from, even if they're bad. I mean, you don't want to make the same mistakes twice. And the only way you're going to do that is know what happened back then, what really happened, where people really at. So many times in this hobby, I've heard, well, there's never been anything here. I don't know why you want to metal detect it. There's never been a house here, or whatever. And then you go in there, you find all this stuff, and all this remnants. And really, you're saving a piece of history right there because nobody else knew about it. It's kind of a good thing. There's a lot of places around the world. This happens everywhere around the world. A lot of bad stuff happened. A lot of good stuff happened. But how do you blame during the colonial times? I mean, blame them for anything. I mean, that's just the way things were. Things sucked sometimes. This country was built on tobacco and booze and oil, and it's just the way that the commerce was back then. And there was good things and bad things, but it was still part of our history. Don't forget your history. So as far as this,
I got a
well, you're good.
I put a video up on YouTube, and it's on the hardcore metal detecting page called Lost Slave Cemetery Dedication. If you want to see it, short video.
Yeah,
but I think it's from what I saw, the people there were, they just you saw people coming up going, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
Yep.
How did you find this? And Jeff was having a lot of problems because it's a black cemetery, and he actually reached out to a black activist, and that caused problems. But now everything's good. Once they saw what he'd done and how he's saving this whole thing,
and that's the way it should be, Craig. The controversy thing. It's nice to see they got past that.
Yeah, and I basically, I talked to a couple of the people, and I said, I've been metal detecting for a long time, and I save history, and when Jeff asked me, to help him out, and it's another thing. We're saving history. This is a lost cemetery. It's not about relics. It's about a place that was lost to history that is now found, and it's a bad part of history, but it's also, the history is warts and all. It's good and bad, but it's the true story. That's what it is.
Well, it's around the world too, Craig. These guys over in Europe and wherever, they're digging up, Viking stuff and Celtic stuff and this and that and Roman stuff in other countries. Those weren't good times. I mean, there was a lot of tyranny, a lot of religious kind of stuff going on, wars going on, but it's still the history of wherever you lived at. Good or bad, at least you could tell the truthful story about it instead of what happened in your area. And sometimes, a lot of us don't even know what happened in our towns. I mean, because no records were kept. So anytime you can kind of save a little piece of that, what they were, and you do it through the relics you find. I mean, it leads you on an adventure trying to figure out what stuff is, what they used it for, where it was made at, why they, how they were getting this stuff. Some of this stuff, they were bringing with them. I find stuff down here all the time from, Canada and from whatever state or sometimes other countries. How it even got there. It's a very positive thing, I think, and the controversy part of it is political more than anything else. Yeah, it seems like it's not. There's not a place for that really in this hobby.
The pastors also talked about how the slaves adopted Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
It just appealed to them. With Jesus's message and everything.
Well, even around here, it's like with Pauline, her family history here is Creole, and then Christianity, both. They mixed them. I mean, there was the hoodoo voodoo stuff, and then but they did. It's just a mixture, man. It's just so interesting to find out how people lived back then. This is a rough area. Now, it was rough most places, but I mean, it was just the trials, the tribulation, what they had to go through, environment wise, weather wise, everything. This applies to most places in the world, I would think. I mean, over in England, they're digging up Iron Age stuff, for God's sake, or whatever, way back. It's really cool.
Well, it's like, when people came to the United States, started exploring, and they, it must have been unbelievable. I read stories about, the forests were so thick, in the late or early 1600s that you couldn't even. It took you like 8 hours to go a half a mile through the woods sometimes.
Right.
That. Those woods had been there for thousands of years, and they just, it must have been amazing, that explorers, especially. I mean, can you imagine, every 5 feet you probably see something different, or something new,
Well, even around here, Craig, stuff gets overtaken so doggone fast. I know where there's houses that I know are there 20 years ago. But you cannot literally, it's like a 1 acre lot. You cannot even see the house or a shed that was used to, it's still there because of all the palmetto bushes and the vines and you don't even know. You think it's just an empty lot that's tree covered. They just cleared one out right here by right around the corner from me. I don't even know how many loads of logs they took out of there and graded it and everything. It was so thick you couldn't see, it's only an acre lot. You couldn't see to the other side of the, which was another house actually. You couldn't see any remnants of it. So you can imagine way back when, if it was like that everywhere, my God, man, how did you make any time? You had to make a path. What do they do? Machetes and not chainsaws, but hand saws and everything else, axes, and just trying to make a way to get your wagon through. It's kind of crazy, but
there's another interesting thing about this cemetery was there was periwinkles all over the ground, and that's a flower that's associated with cemeteries and funerals and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So they were planted, long time ago, in the cemetery. So I thought that was an interesting thing. We saw that in the spring, but we just, Jeff's discovered so much stuff by research, and when he reached out to these black activists, he wanted to go over to D.C. to talk to these black historians, and so he got like an in where they invited him over, and he and Ellen went over and told him what they were doing, and they got help that way. We reached out. I reached out about 8 months ago, and I contacted a bunch of groups on Facebook and told them what we'd found and what we wanted. We needed help on what how to proceed and
how to do it.
Yeah, there was 3 like archaeological groups that they demanded me to tell who I was dealing with, where the site was, all kinds of stuff like that, and I never contacted them back.
Nope, I wouldn't either.
Two of the black groups, one of them, both of them thought we were doing a great thing, but one of them from Rhode Island had gone through hell up there trying to save this black cemetery, and so they gave us a couple things about it, but they said it's wonderful, and don't let these professionals take it over. That's
no.
That was several groups told me that, and I said, well, I said I can tell that they want to take it over. That's the first thing I realized, that they were almost angry, that we'd found this site, and they didn't, they wanted.
Well, the thing is, it's become political for them. For those ones, I think that these different groups.
Well, it's also a job, for
right.
They're looking for jobs too, but
but it's become so hot. That's a hotbed of of controversy sometimes, because they're making it more political or whatever. If like these activists, this activist group or whatever, the historians, they probably, I would think, or they probably should try to get involved with people, maybe an archaeologist, and have a rapport with them so they know where their stance is on stuff, that they're not going to lose this site. Actually hire him, or maybe he'd volunteer his time to have that part of the archaeology part of it more documented or whatever, but have somebody they can work with, not somebody that's a left winger that's going to try to, I don't know, shut the thing down or take it over. I don't agree with that. I think it's local history, and it should be locals in charge of it, of what they want to do.
The way Jeff's done it, he's gotten a bunch of help from some. He's gotten one guy came in and donated all the lumber to put up basically a wooden fence all around the site. And it's basically like you see in a farm field, with the slats across, an older looking fence, and it looks really good. And they got a official sign. It's the Henrico Baltimore Cemetery. He was a freed slave, actually, and we went to 2 other cemeteries 8 months ago, and one of them was near my house. We saw slave graves in that cemetery, and it looked like people didn't. There was other graves, regular graves, but it looked like we could tell that people probably didn't even know those were slave graves. And I talk about it. Jeff mentions me, during the cemetery about, here's my friend Craig, and we were finding artifacts and stuff, and he's been helping us out, and it's I don't know, it's just amazing. A lot of coincidence happened in this. It's almost like it was meant to happen. I'm glad I got a little part into it. It's just it's all about saving history, and this is about saving a site and bringing it back to life. So watch the video. It's pretty interesting. It shows. I'd show a lot of what the cemetery looks like.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out after I
But
get off here. Then I got to head to the post and everything. Brian Stewart's on chat right now, along with Brandon, I think from New York. Yeah, Brandon from New York was on there too. But Brian was saying here, he goes, like our gold rush days. It's portrayed as a great time with people getting rich, and there was a whole lot of misery as well. And there was people out there trying to get rich, but you know what? A small percentage got rich, and a lot of people got dead. I mean, it was whatever. They didn't get rich, but they died. I mean, a lot of people died trying to get there. I mean, like the north to Alaska and the California gold rush, and even over into other countries. I mean, I ran into a site that was owned by Fisher C. West up in Indiana. I mean, his original house site from 1825 or built prior to that, and he traveled. Not only he made his fortune in California at the California gold rush, turned right around and went overseas to Australia and made another fortune, and then came back, and they own oil wells and banks and But yeah, I mean, you get into a lot of this history, but it was not all peaches and cream. It was a lot of well, there's a lot of bad that went along with the good. I guess it's like nowadays, Craig. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good out there, but there's a whole lot of bad too. Yeah, so
gold causes a lot of bad.
Oh yeah, gold fever can cause a lot of
fever.
bad things. Yeah, you see it. It's not easy. If it was easy to find, it's like metal detecting. If it was easy to do and it was easy to find stuff, everybody would be doing it. It does take it takes some skill and a lot of luck. If you don't get your coil over it, you're not going to find it. You can buy $1 million metal detector, but if you have a $2 attitude, you're not going to get anything out of that. You got to spend the time with it, and it's fun. I mean, you got to have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, well, it's not worth doing, is it? So it's like work.
You got to look at it as fun instead of you're really going to, make it rich.
Right.
I mean, very few people make it rich in this hobby. Probably gold is about the only one where you can, actually make stuff.
Yeah.
But,
you're rich in history. You're rich in knowing what was going on in your area. You're rich in having some items that you can't get your hands on very much anymore. If you were to buy this stuff, like you find a relic, I don't care whether it's a pocket watch or whatever, go out and try to buy one like that. I mean, an antique dealer or whatever. When you think about it, you guys have thousands of dollars worth of relics. Even though they're not perfect in mint condition, it doesn't matter. It has the character of being actually used by somebody from back then. It has a story to tell. Everything has a story to tell. And, that's why we said don't throw anything away. Not until it's not part of history, because we don't recognize. This site I'm on right now, I do not recognize some of this stuff. I know it's something. I can tell by the way it's shaped or whatever. But it's so encrusted in dirt and grime, and so many times you hear Craig finding, I found this button, I can't even tell what it is. Craig will spend 2 weeks or 2 months cleaning on this thing to get an ID to try to figure out what it is, and then he finds out some kind of rare button or rare bullet or whatever that there aren't very many out there. Craig being in the hobby for over 30 years, and me being in 20, well, at least almost 20. I mean, there's a lot of things I found that I'll probably never find again, and I haven't seen very many other people find them, out there around the U.S. or whatever.
There's a lot of skills in this hobby besides just metal detecting.
Yeah.
There's finding the sites, the research. There's cleaning,
identification.
There's identification. The history behind all this stuff. There's so much interesting stuff. I mean, the database of history is huge. I mean, look how thousands and thousands of years, we got history going back. We don't even know how far.
Oh, I know. There's civilizations that haven't even been discovered yet. You might be one of the lucky ones that comes across something that leads you on to something else. This hobby leads you into so many different directions. Even technology-wise. I mean, some of us get into the video part, or the podcast radio shows, or into bottle hunting or prospecting, or what, it just kind of just spirals out. Photography is another one. I mean, we have some friends that have it's
enriched
really
their
good
lives.
thing. Yeah, enrich their lives. That's a good point.
Yeah, people, this technology can be bad, sometimes, but at the same time, I mean, we live in a world now where probably, 1,000% more knowledge than we had maybe, before the internet era. I mean, it just it keeps expanding. The technology has just gone crazy. It just leaps and bounds. It just keeps going and going and going. And we got a database now. We got more people on this planet than we've ever had.
I like the way it brings people together.
Yeah, there's so many new discoveries being found with the new technologies too. I mean, when I first started looking at YouTube, there wasn't hardly any, you could hardly find a lot of videos on metal detecting. Now it's there's so many that you can't even watch them all.
Yeah, you can't keep up with. I can't keep up with it. And I love when people send me emails. Hey, check this video out, or personally, I don't like YouTube doing it. I mean, individuals doing it. They'll say, hey, have you seen this video or that video? Or here's the link for it. You got to check it out. I like that because, you can't get through all. You'd spend 24 hours a day looking at videos. I mean, quite literally, I think. I like the mixture of people, whether you're from the U.S. or the U.K. or Australia or whatever. It's funny how we're like-minded in the hobby, and it doesn't matter whether you're some scientist or a doctor, lawyer, police officer, criminal, whatever. We're like-minded in the hobby, and what we do outside of the hobby really don't matter. As far as the way we're talking about stuff, because it's all about metal detecting. It's all about finding history and enjoying ourselves and playing in the dirt. It has no boundaries on age or men or women, children, whatever. We all can get involved in the hobby. I mean, we're open-minded that way. Where a lot of hobbies are geared mostly towards, one age group or one, men or women or whatever. It's nice to have an area like that where, everybody's kind of like-minded. You don't know who you're talking to on the internet, Craig. You know what I mean? Ultimately, you could be talking to, a guy in whatever, some country. You might be talking to one, because everybody kind of, it's a social thing. It's like its own social media thing. So much information. But I think we're going to leave it at that, Craig. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I got to get going and finish my... It's going to be a good day, but it's a whole lot more work trying to get ready for this big Christmas party for the people at the National Cemetery are coming over to the VFW post to do their Christmas party and stuff. And I want to get over there and get all the tables moved around.
Time of the year.
Yeah, it is, man. It is, and it's good busy though. We had a lot of people out this weekend. I mean, that Wreaths Across America. I don't know. There's 2 or 3 semis that went by and just line of traffic for like 45 minutes. It just never stopped, and it was going from different directions because there's 2 ways into that the National Cemetery down here. But everybody afterwards, a lot of people stopped by. We probably had 800 people easily wander in and out and get food and everything else. So it was good times. It was nice to see everybody. But at any rate, Craig, I'm done for today. We're going to do it again on Wednesday morning, guys. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on. We're going to be doing the Coffee with Derek and Craig, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, and then of course our show on Saturday night will be at 8 p.m. Be sure to listen to Relics Radio this Thursday. They're having, I think it's the lady from Nokta on as a guest.
Yeah, she's going to talk about the Simplex and I guess Nokta in general.
Yeah,
that ought to be interesting.
And I guess Craig and I will be on Lloyd's show, Relics Radio, on the day after Christmas, the 26th. I think that's what they said. So that'll be fun. We all talk to each other here and there, and we're all have fun with it. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, talking to Lloyd and Mark and Jeff there. It should be kind of chaos for a while, but we'll have fun. I know that. It's always a hoot.
Oh yeah, it definitely will. Mark's on there too, isn't he?
Yeah, Mark Hoover. Yeah, I mean that's a good friend of ours. So yeah, it might be a 2-hour show, Lloyd. Maybe 3 hours. You never know. So we'll make him run over for once. We're always running over. It seems like. All right, guys. Yeah. Well, be sure to like and follow the show. If you guys are seriously interested in a Simplex, go over there to SeriousDetecting.com. he had them this morning. It says in stock. If anything else, get your name on the list there, and they'll email you when they do have more. And I think he's got his main order in. So if you are interested, get it now because these things are going to fly. I think. Let him know that Hardcore Metal Detecting sent you over, or do a review on it. I mean, see what you think of his website. Let him know if there's something he needs to change about at the website, or maybe your experience with the, when you got your order, how fast it came. Make a review on there, because a lot of us, I do this all the time. I'll look at your reviews to see if I'm going to buy something, or from whoever. I mean, just tell them that Derek and Craig sent you. Shoot, and then let him know what you think. Be honest about it, and that way he can make some changes and make it better experience for everybody. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys go for today. Have a great day. Stay warm if you're cold. Stay cool if you're warm. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.